Welcome to Quad Cities Crime Watch. I'm Sharon Wren.
And I'm Linda Cook.
This week we'll be taking a look at some of the crimes that have happened in the Quad Cities this week and check in with some of the court cases we're following.
Also, Sharon and I need to remind you that we are not reporters, we are not attorneys, and we are not able to direct you to an attorney or give legal advice.
But if you want more information on any of the cases we talk about, you can visit the website, ourquadcities, O-U-R, quadcities.com.
Sharon, you have a really interesting case this week.
Yeah, one of the men accused in the Rock Island auction barn fire back in February entered a plea earlier this week. Matthew Waddell of East Moline pleaded guilty to one count of arson, a Class 2 felony. Excuse me. 2 counts of criminal damage, more than $100,000, and animal torture were dropped. He's scheduled to be sentenced in January and could be facing a prison term of 3 to 7 years.
That's a long time. Now, we read about pleas all the time. What does that mean?
That means when you go into the court and you say in front of the judge, I am guilty of committing this event, or I am not guilty of committing it.
Okay. And this plea, you hear about plea deals a lot. This particular one involved then dropping other charges in lieu of his plea of guilty to the others.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. And is he going to be in court again soon?
He is going to be sentenced in January of 2025.
One of us will be there for that, for sure.
Definitely.
Just recently, I wanted to bring this up. I wrote about a Bettendorf man who faces charges involving 2 juvenile victims. And these 2 young people reported that this man touched them inappropriately and assaulted them at different times. These are the charges: lascivious acts with a child, aggravated misdemeanor charges of indecent contact with a child, assault with intent to commit sexual abuse, and child endangerment. This is a 46-year-old Bettendorf man named Dustin McDonald who faces the charges. I wanted to explain that we have no names and no ages of his victims, and that one of the things you and I talk about constantly is keeping victims safe and ensuring their privacy. So a lot of times, if there's an eluding, say, and a person is caught at the corner of Division and Kimberly Road, we're going to say that. Where did it happen? But in this case, we do not say where it happened because we do not want these victims to be exposed to any more publicity than possible.
Right.
Nor would we take their pictures if we had them or give out any other details. The first victim said that McDonald put his hands on them after being told to stop, and this was repeatedly. When this young person reported it to an adult, the adult told this young person that this was just play fighting and told the victim to toughen up. According to arrest affidavits, the Department of Human Services got involved in this case, and they requested forensic interviews of both victims by the Child Protection Response Center. What's a forensic interview? And I had to look that up myself because I wasn't sure. It's conducted by a trained professional with the child to gather information that's used to help determine A, whether abuse has occurred, and B, how can the child's safety needs be addressed. So this is being taken seriously by a number of agencies, and we will continue to follow this up too. Choking incidents are alleged in this, as well as other kinds of inappropriate touching. McDonald was arrested on a warrant, and he's scheduled for a preliminary hearing October 29 in Scott County Court.
And we will be following that case as
Absolutely.
well. We have an unusual case out of Scott County that was recently settled.
You do. This is something different than either you or I think have written about before.
Definitely. A woman named Angelic Ike was fired from her job at an Illinois trucking company in June.
Okay.
She then returned to her semi-truck that she drove for the company and left the premises.
Oh my.
Yes, the company called her repeatedly to tell her to come back. She ignored the calls, and she was arrested for first-degree theft in LeClaire.
Oh, so that must be where they found the truck.
Yeah,
okay.
that's where they found the truck. She recently had the charges against her dismissed because she completed what they're calling the Adult Misdemeanor Program through Eastern Iowa Community College, and her bail money was returned to whomever posted it, whether it was a bail bondsman or family member.
That's interesting. I've heard of this sometimes with drinking and driving
The
cases.
OWIs, yes.
So this seems to be the same sort of thing, that you can make up for what you're charged with by educating yourself. Interesting.
Yeah, and which is really interesting because she was prosecuted for first-degree theft, and first degree is the worst degree, if you will, for theft.
Because I believe theft involves how much whatever you took is worth, right? And a semi would be worth thousands.
A lot. We don't know how new or old the semi was, but even an old one is still worth a lot of money.
Wow. Well, she has a chance to redeem herself, and that is what we hope will happen.
Right.
On the other hand, I wrote about a man who has been in court several times in the last few years. James Hawkins Sr. appeared with his attorney October 10th. This was in Scott County Court, and he too pleaded guilty. He pleaded guilty to 2 charges of possession with intent to deliver crack cocaine, and was sentenced to a period not to exceed 15 years with a 3-year mandatory minimum on each charge. But this wasn't the only case that he appeared on.
Oh.
In another drug-related case, he pleaded guilty to possession with intent to deliver crack cocaine, possession with intent to deliver marijuana, and dominion control of a firearm, offensive weapon by a felon. For those charges, he was sentenced to a term not to exceed 15 years with a 3-year mandatory minimum. Now, the sentences in these cases will run concurrently. That means at the same time, but they will run consecutive to other sentences imposed in yet another case. Other charges were dismissed. He will receive credit for time served, but this is after police found drugs and guns in his home. And if you want to see the whole list, look his name up, James Hawkins Sr., and you can see that on ourquadcities.com.
And I'm glad you had to figure out all that business with the sentencing, because I'm already confused and I'm just listening.
It took a while, believe me, but each and I know there are people out here listening who go through Scott County inmates and see who's listed. That's a lot of people do that. When you see the charges, it'll say FECR and then a number. So you can tell what the sentencing was for each case by the number. If you're that interested in digging deep, that's how you do it.
Well, speaking of Scott County Jail, you and I both check every day to see who's new in there. And when we check this, we can see what people were arrested for. Some of the charges, like failure to appear, FTA, or OWI, operating under the influence. We used to call it DUI, but now it's OWI. Those charges are fairly common, but on Monday, we had 4 people booked on loitering charges.
Loitering, okay.
I don't know if I've seen a loitering charge in 2 years that I've worked here.
Once in a while I see one. It usually is paired with other charges, maybe criminal mischief or that kind of thing. Sharon, what exactly is loitering versus trespass?
Loitering is when you are in a public or a private place without intent.
Okay, so if you and I were just strolling down the street and happened to stop and carry on our conversation in someone's yard, we would be loitering in the yard, right? Okay.
Sometimes you'll see signs in grocery stores or other shops, no loitering.
Right. Okay, that's what that means.
Yes. Now, trespassing is when you are in a public or a private place and you are asked to leave, but you do not.
Oh.
So I guess there's a bit of intent there.
Yes, and a bit of a pushback when you're asked to leave and you don't.
You don't. So in case anyone was wondering, some of the more popular charges for people in the Scott County Jail include OWI, possession of a controlled substance, various degrees of theft, and failure to appear.
And that's the FTA that we see in front of the charges, right? It means they failed to appear on that particular charge.
On a speeding charge or on a burglary charge or whatever. So if you don't go to court, we will find out.
Yes, and the judge probably will too.
Yes.
Well, Sharon, this was really interesting today, and we would tell you what's coming up, but we don't know.
We don't know. Who knows who's getting booked right now?
Right now. So thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Sharon is amazing at digging deep into these documents, but we did want to say, both of us, everything we write is based on either what an official tells us, we're at the scene, or court documents.
Right.
Stay safe out there.
See you next week.